Got to read between the lines. Got to read between the lines.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host, Tom D'Ambra. You know, my friends, I was coming into the studio this morning, and the saying by Goethe just kept resonating in my head. And that saying is so true, and the saying is this: none are more enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. And we find ourselves, my friends, in that situation today. And I want to go over some information with you, but I also would like to take the time, and hopefully I will find the time in this broadcast, to speak openly to you about, and I don't usually get into opinions, but about opinions where we are as a nation and where we are as a people, and where the people who are controlling the mechanisms of our society from all different levels and all different avenues are taking us. And in all the years that we've been doing this program, I have never got into an opinionated piece. I have only presented facts to you. But I feel that the clock is ticking, and the clock is about to strike 12, and for a lot of reasons. And I take this, my friends, not from an opinion of ignorance, but from an opinion as a student of history, and understanding that we are not the first country that these international bankers have conquered, and understanding that technology has taken us to a level where their mechanisms of warfare, and this is a war being waged against the American people, has gotten to a point where they can fulfill their mission criteria because of the technology, because of the long-term warfare that has been waged against the minds and the thinking processes of the American people. But before I do that, I want to cover some basic things with you. And I'm going to try not to go into a long thing about this, because I really want to cover some of my thoughts with you. And like I said, this is very unusual for us to do. If you've been watching this program for the years that we've been on, you know that we usually speak matter-of-factly. We present evidence to you that is documented, the Law Library of Congress, court cases, statements made by the people who were involved with whatever event that we were studying or discussing. So I wanted to read something for you, and obviously this has to do with, this came out on the internet with regards to, I think it was reference to Sandy Hook. It doesn't say that, but I just from the timing of it all. And I thought this was interesting, and I thank Stanley for bringing this to my attention. And it goes like this, my friends. A person steals guns, which is against the law, shoots and kills his own mother, which is against the law, transports these guns loaded, which is against the law, brings guns into school property, which is against the law, breaks into the school, which is against the law, discharges the weapons within city limits, which is against the law, murders 26 people, which is against the law, and commits suicide, which is against the law. Do you really think that we need more laws? No. What we need, my friends, is common sense. Okay, this is a bill. This is out of Washington State, and if you want to look this up, it is Washington State Senate Bill 5737. And basically, I'll read this verbatim to you. This is from the Seattle Times. Senator Adam Klein of Seattle, a Democrat, is basically saying that they should, frankly, I should have vetted this more closely. And basically, in order to continue a process an assault weapon that was legally processed on the effective date of this section, the person processing shall safely and securely store the assault weapon. The sheriff of the county may, no more than once per year, conduct an inspection to ensure compliance with this subsection. My friends, what they're saying to you here, where do you keep your weapons? Think about it. Where do you keep your weapons? Obviously, somewhere in your possession, usually in your home. Say goodbye to the Fourth Amendment, my friends. This bill, Washington Senate Bill 5737, basically is going to allow police, and I'm saying this verbatim from the headline, allow police to search home of gun owners. Again, Washington State Bill 5737. This is incredible. Now, how do they know who the gun owners are? Because we were forced to register them. See, my friends, stepping stones, stepping stones, stepping stones. Oh, first we're going to have you register the guns, but don't worry, we're not going to take them. Now we're going to inspect them guns, but only once a year. We're going to actually be good guys and limit ourselves how often we can come in without a court order and kick your door in and inspect your weapons. And what do you think is going to happen how about when they find some little incremental thing wrong? They're going to confiscate your weapons. And what do you think is going to happen when they create the next crises to say, oh, we have to come take them now? But we're being good to you. We're only going to kick your door in once a year to come and inspect your weapons in your home. Feds buy 2 billion rounds of ammunition. If you remember, about a month ago, we told you that the federal government had bought basically 1.6 billion rounds of 40 Smith. Now, for those of you in the military, because I know we have a viewing audience down in North Carolina, and I want to say again, thank you to them so much for having the interest here up in the northern Vermont. And it makes me feel good, makes us feel good that we have a growing audience outside the states of Vermont and New Hampshire. But my friends, we reported to you that they had purchased 1.6 billion rounds of 40 Smith. And I know that you in the military are saying, wait a minute, we don't use 40 Smith. Who does use 40 Smith, my friends? The domestic security forces do. Now they have upped the ante. They bought another 400 million. So they have purchased now 2 billion with a B, Bravo, rounds of 40 Smith. Now I want you to think about this. First of all, in 1933 with the Trading with the Enemies Act, they declared, and I know you know this from watching this program, but again, we have many new viewers, so for those of you who have been watching for a while, please bear with us. Some of this may be redundant to you. The 1933 Trading with the Enemies Act, March 9th, 1933, when the corporation that we call the United States government went insolvent to another corporation known as the Federal Reserve. And yes, my friends, if you're a new viewer of the program, you're about to get a real education and understanding that the Federal Reserve is a private, for-profit banking corporation. So what they did, my friends, is they changed the definition of enemy from the original Trading with the Enemies Act of 1917. And they changed the definition of enemy to be citizens living in the United States and under the jurisdiction thereof. And we have read this to you verbatim on numerous programs. But you can go on the internet and look it up yourself. So you have been declared the enemy by the insolvent corporation that you call the United States government. And let's not forget that this is the same insolvent corporation that is allowing another foreign corporation to control your education, known as UNESCO. This is the same insolvent corporation that is allowing a Rockefeller Foundation to control your health, known as the AMA, the American Medical Association. This is the same insolvent corporation that is allowing the creditor, Federal Reserve Bank, to control the issuance of your currency, which is nothing of an intrinsic value. It is an instrument of debt, Federal Reserve note. What's a note, my friends? An acknowledgement of debt. We have read that to you in Black's Law Dictionary many times. That's why there's two signatories on that entity, my friends. One's the creditor, one's the debtor, and the liability is on you. This is the same insolvent corporation that is poisoning you with a try-to-be mandatory vaccination through an agenda and propaganda. Although there is no law that says you have to take these vaccinations. But a lot of Americans do because, oh, they're only looking out for our own benevolence. They're looking out for us. SV40, a cancer agent, thrombicerol, mercury. This is the same insolvent corporation that you know is the United States government that is spraying chemtrails in the atmosphere. Cancerous agents, bariums, aluminums. This is the same insolvent corporation that is poisoning you with a multitude of agents in your drinking water, but especially fluoride, which is the number 1 and/or 2 ingredient in rat poisoning. It is the same ingredient that Hitler put in the labor camps in Germany and Stalin put in the gulags. This is the same insolvent corporation that will not allow you to know if there is GMO food that you are consuming. This is the same insolvent corporation that is poisoning you with plastics. This is the same insolvent corporation that is not allowing you, my friends, to drink organic raw milk, one of the most beneficial things that we can put into our bodies. This this insolvent corporation, through the NDAA, has declared the United States, the geographical area of the United States, a battleground. To use their own words, a battleground. This is the same insolvent corporation that is controlling every mechanism of your life with technology, openly collecting data on you through social media, Facebook and so forth, openly collecting and sorting and profiling every open-air communication. I ask you to look into Echelon, Project Echelon. We have covered this probably 3 years ago. This is the same insolvent corporation that is tracking your every move with transponders in your cell phones. This is the same insolvent corporation that is bleeding the middle class through economic policies that are benefiting the rich and the corporations while transferring the debts and liabilities to the shoulders of the middle class. This is the same insolvent corporation that has signed and put into action contracts like NAFTA, CAFTA, and GATT, where we literally finance our own demise by giving tax incentives and financing for manufacturing companies to move their manufacturing base overseas. This is the same insolvent corporation that is arresting 11 and 12-year-old children for having lemonade stands because they didn't have a permit. This is the same insolvent corporation that has your sons and daughters in 148 different nations throughout the world bleeding for the profits of corporations. This is the same insolvent corporations that funded and financed Al-Qaeda, or as it is known in the CIA, Al-Qaeda, as we transfer them from different countries with our own military MAC, Military Airlift Command, taking them out of Afghanistan, into Pakistan, into Libya, into Syria, now into Mali, and soon to be agent provocateurs in Iraq to create crises throughout the continent of Africa. This is the same insolvent corporation that has not only declared you the enemy, not only declared the ground that you stand on a battleground, has now purchased, that we know of, 2 billion rounds of one single caliber used only by domestic security forces. This is the same insolvent corporation that just last week, months and months later, were able to send some, they haven't sent a gallon of water to the victims of Sandy yet, but they actually said they were going to do it and allotted funds for it. Now that it's February, Sandy took place, as we know, late October, early November. This is the same insolvent corporation, my friends, that has brought in over 225,000 foreign combat troops under a foreign command into this country, while approximately 63% of our military is abroad. This is the same insolvent corporation that has what historically has been known as mercenaries. You know them to be politically correct as contractors working domestically here in the United States, which they don't not subjected to the guidelines and protocols of our United States military. This is the same insolvent corporation that has publicly admitted the formation, funding, and operation of FEMA camps. FEMA couldn't get water to the people of Katrina. FEMA couldn't get water to the victims of Sandy, but they've got the sense, the logistical support and financial support to set up FEMA camps, or as the Attorney General, John Ashcroft, called them, internment camps throughout the country. This is the same insolvent corporation that has purchased hundreds of thousands of 4-person plastic coffins. Go on the internet. You can see train loads, not truckloads, train loads of them. You have to ask yourself, my friends, where are we? We hear about the financial cliff. This financial cliff was set up in 1912, enacted in 1913. The 100-year plan is here. The clock is just about ready to strike midnight. 2 billion rounds of just one caliber ammunition. Really incredible. Okay, let us continue. The G20 summit to focus on currency war threats. My friends, do you remember the words of Sherman Webster? I had spoken about him some years ago. He was actually a 13th direct descendant of Noah Webster. And what he said at one of these classes was, and this man is very well studied, very in depth as to the mechanics of the international bankers. And he said, if you remember, one very important thing to take out of this class is that all war is a settlement of debt. My friends, there is a currency war going on. And I want to speak to that to some degree. We have all heard about the United States dollar, which if you're watching this show, you know is not a dollar at all, because a dollar is 25.8 grains of gold and a 15-to-1 ratio of silver, as we've read to you from the Coinage Acts, the founding era of this country. And we know that a dollar is not an interest-bearing note, which is what we have in our pockets today. But basically, the currency wars are because of the following. One, and this transcribes into physical war. One, the reason why just about every nation in the world has the American dollar as its reserve currency was because with an agreement with OPEC, which we formed in 1971, and we've talked about this triangle with OPEC, that if you were going to sell, if you're a country and you were going to sell and or purchase a barrel of oil on the international market, you had to take your local currency, you had to exchange it into American dollars, which we now know are Federal Reserve notes, and then either sell. If you were selling, you would accept them as dollars or Federal Reserve notes, and if you were purchasing, you would purchase with Federal Reserve notes. And what we would do, what they would do, I would say, should say, is that so every country in the world, everyone needs oil. Our mechanics of our society are based on oil, because so much advanced technology has been kept from us. You know, and I think someday we're going to do, I know we've touched on that very little, but someday we're going to do just a complete show on technology that has been kept from mankind. And the big one that comes to my head right now is actually multiple of them, but Dr. Raymond Royal Rife killing cancer cells in 1928 with sound waves. Cancer is a big moneymaker. Cancer is a big controller. Cancer, as the elite call it, is soft killing. The other thing is the Tesla technology, the free energy machines. Because, you know, my friends, the Earth is traveling through space at thousands of miles an hour. It is spinning, and through all that inertia comes energy. But Westinghouse and J.P. Morgan and others, they didn't want that technology out to the American people. Not only would it have cost them fortunes, they would have lost control of societies. But we have been kept in the Stone Age with fossil fuels. And we've been kept in the Stone Age with not expanding our technology with fossil fuels. We have been kept basically at this level since about the 1930s and 40s. Yeah, you can say, oh, well, cars ride better, and they might get a little better gas mileage, but not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, not with what the technology is out there. We shouldn't even be using fossil fuels for transportation, my friends. They've got satellites, solar satellites that are out in space from 1966 still functioning. 1966 technology still functioning. It's 2013. You don't think they can come up with a self-generating modus of transportation? Of course they can. So with this barrel of oil, and you had to have a Federal Reserve note to purchase and or sell it on the international market, because we did this with OPEC. Folks, we formed OPEC. And the agreement was this. One, we were going to shut down the American production, which we have. Two, and that was part of the environmental movement. Two, we were going to protect these countries militarily. Three, we were going to control the abundance of oil on the market. And that is the main reason, my friends, one of the two reasons why we went into Iraq with Saddam Hussein. As you know from watching this program, we put Saddam Hussein in power. We gave him the chemicals to kill the Kurds. And when the Iranian embassy fell, we supplemented his army and built it up to the point that it was the 5th largest military force in the world. because now he's at war with Iran. So what happened with Saddam Hussein is that Saddam Hussein was benefiting and building his society. Of course, we have destroyed all the infrastructure of that country, and we've murdered millions of civilians. As a matter of fact, you remember Madeleine Albright, or as I like to say, Madeleine Not So Bright, who was the Secretary of State during the Clinton administration, when she was asked by a very courageous journalist, that according to the United Nations, we have at that point murdered 500,000 innocent children in Iraq. And what was her answer? We think the cost is worth it. My friends, that was in the 90s. How many have we murdered since? Innocent children. How many have we maimed since? And we are responsible for this through our inactions. So back to OPEC, if we may. So with OPEC, we form them. We tell them we're going to buy our oil from you. We're going to shut down American production. And we're going to protect you militarily. Well, my friends, the three things that I just said all does what? Every single one of them actions does what? Makes you pay higher taxes for the bludgeoning military. Makes you send your sons and daughters off to bleed for profits. Makes you pay a higher price at the pumps for the fuel that we could be getting here domestically. And it takes away thousands and thousands of American jobs and tax revenue. The trick of the matter was this, my friends, that when we formed OPEC, we said to particularly Saudi Arabia, and this is why they're the number 2 purchaser of our treasury bonds, which is just debt, that we said, okay, we're going to make you billionaires, trillionaires, we're going to protect you, we're going to let you have your controlled society, we're going to sanction it, but you, because our money, we no longer have money, we have a legal tender instrument of debt known as a Federal Reserve note, you are going to purchase with your earnings from the pocketbooks of the American people a certain percentage of treasury bills. Every month, you're going to come to the auction and you are going to purchase treasury bills. They've been very happy to do that. They're trillionaires. They've got their closed society. They got the U.S. military protecting them. And all the profits are coming from the backs, the sweat equity of the American people. The insolvent corporation is happy because they keep this debt scheme going along by these treasury bills being facilitated and purchased. And then when these treasury bills come to maturity, guess who is liable for the benefit and payment? You are. You are. That's how OPEC was formed, by a group of international bankers and puppets working for them, and that was the reasoning behind it. My friends, we have more oil in Alaska and North and South Dakota than all of Saudi Arabia. Never mind Texas. Do you know where the first oil well in the world was? Titusville, Pennsylvania, as in Penn State Oil. This is where we are, my friends. And now there's a currency war going on, and I didn't read this whole article, but the currency war that is going on, you know what I should do? I made some notes here with regards to some headlines in the financial papers last week. I went throughout the world, and all I did was, okay, let's see what's going on just in headlines throughout the world. Financial headlines. Currency wars, sideshow at China summit. Darwinian medicine at the World Health Summit. And if you don't think that has a lot to do with finances, my friend, you just hold on. Gulf Petro Power is to launch currency war and latest threat to dollar. G8 fully believes Israel will attack Iran, protecting dollar, says Italian Prime Minister. Italian town prints its own currency to fight austerity measures. That was big. I really was excited about that. Economic power grab by the European Union plan to control Britain's economy as Europe bails out Greece. Venezuela proposes new regional currency. This is on American newspapers. How Iran is a threat to the world economy, says Obama. An economy bigger than Russia, Brazil, and Canada, and India, or Spain is about to default. The United States. World leaders to meet on economy in Washington, and New York Fed private bank intervenes in yen currency trade. That's just some of the headlines. G20 summit to focus on currency war. My friends, as you know from watching this program, again, Sherman Webster, all war is a settlement of debt. And I just explained to you the reason why we went into Iraq, because he was trying to get out of debt. He flooded the market with oil. If you remember when we went into Iraq the first time in 1991, oil was, the price of gas was nationally, I looked it up, 69 cents a gallon. 69 cents a gallon. We are now, if you have noticed in the last 3 weeks, and today is the 20th of February, that gas has incrementally gone up an average of 17 cents a week. And you want to know why, my friends? Because there's a currency war going on. And that currency war is from no one wants what you call the dollar anymore. The gig is up. The game is over. It's over. Everybody understands that this is a debt instrument except for the American people. They don't want it anymore. Saddam Hussein was not only flooding the market with oil to bring in revenue so he could get out of the clutches of the international bankers, he was not only blossoming his society, and yes, he was. My friends, they had the highest education rate in the Middle East. They had some of the lowest crime in the Middle East. They were blossoming. He was getting out of debt of the bankers, and then he made the fatal mistake and said he was no longer going to accept American dollars to purchase his oil. That was it. That was the end of the road for Saddam Hussein. That was the end of the road. And so if you read the book Alice Glasby, the ambassador to the United States in 1991. And folks, I want you to think about this. The communism fell, the Great Wall came down in 1989, and in less than 19 months later, we had a new arch enemy we had to go get. Fear, the fear factor. Of course, we financed all the communist movements from Mao to Lenin, the Bolshevik Revolution. We've gone over all that in this program, how we financed Hitler. Brown Brothers Union Bank of New York. Fund manager was a guy named Prescott Bush, a senator from Connecticut, the grandfather of George W. Look it up. I'm not making this up. If you're a new viewer, that probably sounds very strange to you. That just can't be. This guy's crazy. No, that's documented history, my friends. So we had to have this new enemy. And so Alice Glasby delivers a letter, handheld letter, written by George Sr. Bush, to go ahead and invade Kuwait, stay out of Saudi Arabia. Again, OPEC agreement. Saddam took the bait, went into Kuwait, and we had to do something about this evil, evil man. This very, very evil man. And my friends, when you didn't hear about what was going on in Kuwait when Saddam did this, and I'm not saying he was right or proper to do this, I'm just saying he took the bait. He fell for the bait. They wiggled the carrot in front of him. He took them at their word, and he went for it. Out of all of the Middle East, my friends, Kuwait was the most decimated society, the most poorest, the most ignorant society out of all the Middle East. And do you remember when we got the prince and all that coming back on the plane in all these robes and, this is a great day, liberation? Not at all. Not at all. That was the bait for Saddam to take. And he took it. to his own demise. We went into Libya because Gaddafi, who also had told the world, I am no longer accepting American dollars for oil, and only gold and intrinsic value. Oh, you know another thing that Saddam Hussein, let me back up, my friends, I'm sorry. Another thing that Saddam tried to do, he never got off the ground with it, but he really had it going, is he tried to create a currency for oil exporting countries that would have a common currency that was based on the value of a barrel of oil. Now think about that. If the whole world is absorbed into oil, must have oil, it's always going to maintain a value. What would you rather have? A commodity of intrinsic value based on a barrel of oil, the value of it? Or would you rather have a debt instrument? Everybody would flock to it. Why do you think there's not a currency in the world based on gold? Even though we're in Mali right now, attacking Mali and killing thousands of civilians, because Mali's the #3 producer in the world of gold. So Gaddafi is building great relations with China. He develops the world's largest aquifer. His education system is the best in Africa. But he makes the crucial mistake of saying he will no longer accept dollars, Federal Reserve notes, for his oil. He was investing in refineries also. When's the last time the United States built a refinery? 1968, I believe it is. So all this goes on, my friends, and then Gaddafi, when he made that mistake, well, what did we do? We took Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda out of Pakistan. We supplemented them in arms, and that's what the death of Benghazi, the ambassador, was about. Folks, they got caught shuffling firearms and missiles to Al-Qaeda. They had to be killed. They had to be out of the way. You think that we watched them for 8 hours, and them 2 brave Navy SEALs, because they weren't far away. They actually got there and held off quite a group of people. Brave, courageous men. Gave their lives thinking they were doing the right thing. My friends, they got caught up because of their courage in an exposed missile gun-ringing operation. And they sat there, the U.S. military, the most powerful force in the world, with technology of gridding every single inch of this planet in a hot area that we were already fomenting agent provocateurs in, that you know as Al-Qaeda. Yes, we founded them, we fund them, and we transport them even today. Isn't it just funny how all of a sudden Al-Qaeda pops up and, gee, they're in Afghanistan. Gee, they're in Yemen. Gee, they're in Pakistan. Gee, they're in Iraq. Gee, they're over here now in Syria. Now they're in Libya. Oh, gee, now they're in Mali. Boy, that's a serious logistical operation to do that. I didn't realize they were equipped with such, modern equipment, C-5A Galaxies, C-141s, and so forth, to have the logistical support to do that. I'm sure they didn't walk all the way from Yemen to Mali without us being able to see it. They are the agent provocateurs, my friends. They create the crisis. That's their mission criteria. And if you really think that we killed Osama bin Laden, just last year, my friends, the rest of the world knew that bin Laden died in 2002 from renal failure. We had to dump his body out in the ocean. Really? You have that kind of an intelligent resource? You got this guy, now I want you to understand this, my friends. This guy needed dialysis every 3 to 4 days, but he lived in a cave in Bora Bora, Afghanistan. I didn't know they had electricity and dialysis machines in Bora Bora, Afghanistan, in caves. And this guy from a cave with no electricity also put together the greatest terrorist act against the American people. He had the ability to shut NORAD down. He had the ability to have explosives in the 3 buildings that went down. Now, I know you're watching this program. You're saying, Tom, what do you mean 3 buildings went down? Only 2 went down, Tower 1 and Tower 2. My friends, look up Building 7. Building 7 that imploded at 4:34 that afternoon. And how do I know that there was explosives there? Because there was thermite found everywhere. That's how I know. And how did I know that there was thermite found there? Not because the government, they didn't even create a crime scene at 9/11. They didn't even create a crime scene. So a guy living in Bora Bora, Afghanistan, was able to have NORAD stand down, put all this together. He didn't even have supposedly a cell phone. What kind of cell coverage you think there is in a cave in Bora Bora, Afghanistan in the year 2000, 2001? The technology for the cell phone calls that were made from the airliners didn't exist till 2004. And we read that to you verbatim. They were all excited now because they had the technology where people could use their cell phones in the airlines. But what's taken place since that whole facade of 9/11? We've invaded 7 countries. Oh, excuse me, 8. We've developed a domestic security militarized police force. The people have accepted their authority. They've given up liberties. Our taxes have tripled. Our debt is tripled. See, bankers love debt because guess what? You have to facilitate the mechanisms and logistics of war. Well, what are you going to do? You're already an insolvent corporation. You're going to have to come see me for more credit, which is going to cost your people. And you don't read about this in the mainstream media because the mainstream media, my friends, throughout the world is controlled by 6 corporations. We are living in a state of fascism. As Mussolini called it, it's corporatism. Now, I'm going to try to go on. You want to hear about some corporations? Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to read this verbatim. Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan. Number of offshore tax havens in 2010, 371. Bank of America operated 371 subsidiaries incorporated in offshore tax havens. 204 of these subsidiaries are incorporated in the Cayman Islands, which has a corporate tax rate of 0. You know, my friends, I'm going to save this for another show because I have got 6 pages here listing corporations who are paying 0 income taxes and or receiving millions and millions of dollars in tax incentives. General Electric, PG&E Corporation, Verizon Communications, Wells Fargo, American Electric Power, Pepco Holdings, Computer Sciences, CenterPoint Energy, NiSource, Duke Energy, Boeing, Nextra Energy, Consolidated Edison. I mean, I've got 7 pages of it here. Goldman Sachs CEO Lord Blankfein. Oh, do you know why you should remember that name? This is the guy that not only got a $278 million tax fund in 2010, this is the guy that actually gained a $110 million bonus from the top funds that you are liable for. And this is the same guy that we read to you about 3 months ago that said, we need to cut Social Security and Medicare because we can't afford it. We could afford his $110 million, $2.3 billion bailout to Goldman Sachs. But we can't afford the Social Security that you've been paying into and the Medicare you've been paying into all your life, getting back at reduced purchasing power. And they control it. Oh, if you go out and get a part-time job, how dare you? We're going to penalize you. But we can't afford Social Security. You want to know why they can't afford Social Security, my friends? They have been fleecing it since 1964. Fleecing it. You hear about these terrible baby boomers. The baby boomers have been working for how long supplementing this corporation, this insolvent corporation, taking the average American right now is paying 62% in taxes and fees to the government, and they still can't get it right. And then your money that you think is money, which is not money, it's legal tender, because money does not encompass debt. We've read that to you how many times on this program? Money does not encompass debt. Money has to have intrinsic value, gold, silver, or as Saddam tried to do, a barrel of oil. We are at the point, my friends, where we bond our children. Birth certificate, and we did a whole show on this. We did a whole show on the birth certificate and the responses I got from people. They just couldn't believe it, but they never thought of the word certificate. And why does the birth certificate go to the Department of Commerce and the record of birth goes to the Health Department? I want to tell you why. They are two separate entities. The Health Department is recording the physical flesh and blood birth of you or your children or your grandchildren. The Department of Commerce, whose task is what? Financial transactions. Creates a bond through two companies, the North American Banknote Company or the Midwest Banknote Company. I happen to be bonded through the Midwest Banknote Company, which, if you follow that bond to the top of the pyramid, you will come to an institution known as the Bank of International Settlements that is founded and operating in Basel, Switzerland. Now you want to ask yourself, well, how did they get this money to put this big bank together? The money, as we have covered before, my friends, came from the booty of the Third Reich as it was failing. We are the Fourth Reich. So we have to keep asking ourselves, where are they taking us? Where are we going? How much time do we have? What should we do? What should we do? We are at a point where we're almost at the point, my friends, where there's no turning around. Now, some things during the Great Depression that was orchestrated was that there was over 2,300 common, and I want to use the word currencies because they did have some kind of value, local value. And some of this is going on, or attempted to go on in New York State. Of course, the people were put in jail. Some of this was said to go on with the company that started issuing silver dollars for a medium of exchange, and they were put in jail. So what happens is, my friends, say you're during the Great Depression, let's say you're a mechanic and I'm a carpenter, and I valued my hourly wage at, let's just say, $15 an hour, 15 Federal Reserve notes an hour, and you did the same, or yours was 10 and 15, 20, whatever. It didn't matter. It was a coupon which created the currency because it was an intrinsic value medium of exchange. Because, okay, I'm going to work on your truck or your vehicle for X amount of hours. In exchange, you're going to go fix my roof for X amount of hours, and we're going to exchange these coupons. But what was taking place? Who was not in the loop here, my friends? The bankers. The bankers were not in the loop. The bankers were not in the loop. They had to put an end to this. This country was based on bartering. Was based on bartering. I remember in junior high school, we had a class of economics. Of course, they didn't get into the Federal Reserve. And that would have been an interesting time because that was basically in my early days of high school and later days of junior high school when the American dollar still foreignly, not domestically, but foreignly had some intrinsic value. Of course, Nixon, having no choice because all the gold and silver was confiscated, took us off the gold standard. Excuse me, at that point there was no gold, the silver standard. Now, President Kennedy, who I believe was the last president to really attempt to make a difference in this country for the people, when he issued silver certificates, and if you go to any like coin shop or pawn shops today, you can find these silver certificates. And they probably cost you anywhere from $5 to $10, depending on their condition. But you see right on the bottom of it, it'll say silver certificate, bearer redeemable in 1 ounce of silver. And the reason why was because Kennedy did an audit on Fort Knox, and he realized there was no gold, and there was $2.68 trillion worth of silver. So he issued silver certificates against that. The next thing, and you can look this up in Executive Order 11110. Very easy. 2 11s and a 0. The next thing he was going to do what Lincoln did and got Lincoln killed, was he was going to issue U.S. notes. In other words, he was going to issue United States government notes. Yes, they are instruments of debt, but because there's no intrinsic value backing them up, but there wouldn't have been an interest bond due on it to a foreign private bank that you know is the Federal Reserve. The bankers couldn't have that. They couldn't have that with Lincoln, and they couldn't certainly have that with JFK. And then after JFK told George Ball, hey, we're not going into Vietnam, and I'm pulling the advisors out, and I signed Executive Order 1110, and I gave my very eloquent, well-done speech at the National Press Club asking for help from the national media to expose what was going on behind the scenes with the government. JFK stepped on the same ground of mistakes as Gaddafi, as Saddam Hussein, and others did, and wound up with the same deadly results. My friends, this fiscal cliff is a facade. It's fraud. It's fraud. The debt is not ours. The debt is fraud. Look what Iceland has done. I'm so proud of them people. Proud of them. And I want to tell you, ever since what Iceland has done, I am now on the internet communicating with 6 people from Iceland. A real estate agent, a dentist, a chef, a carpenter. These education-wise, they vary, okay? Well, let me tell you, my friends, they're like talking to me, every one of them. They educated themselves. They had a referendum. 92% of the people of Iceland said, no, we're not bailing out this fraudulent debt. And they went beyond that. They put in all new people at the federal and local level. They voted the crooks out. They arrested 9 of the top bankers throughout Iceland that were part of the fraud. The other bankers who fled the nation fearing for their lives, they have currently international bondsmen hunting them down. And then they went the big step further, my friends, and they declared all financial institution mortgages null and void. So you have to ask yourself, what happened to Iceland? Well, the first time in the history of that nation, they have very little debt. They are exporting literally 2.8 times more than what they import. Folks, this is the first time in the history of this land that they are actually exporting more than what they've imported, because they're booming. They're booming. There is no debt. The debt is private. You know, I was just reading a report earlier in the week where the credit card use is down and credit card debt is down. Well, that's good. The American people are controlling their purse strings. What's the American government doing? Raising the debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling. My friends, they have no control over raising the debt ceiling. They're the debtors. If I'm the debtor and you're the creditor, who has real control who's going to raise the debt ceiling? You do. You're the creditor. So what if I raise the debt ceiling? What's that mean? It means nothing. It's you have to raise the debt ceiling. You're the creditor. You have to allow me to borrow more money to keep this sham going. And it's not money, is it? Because money does not encompass debt. So where does the game end? Do you remember the statement that we read to you 3 weeks ago from the Obama fiscal cliff head honcho there? What did he say? We are going to kill the dollar. Of course, the dollar was killed a long time ago, but what you perceive to be the dollar. I read that to you verbatim. That was from a White House statement, the White House press statement. We are going to kill the dollar. Of course they are. That was the plan from a long time ago. My friends, you better get off the bloody couch. You better educate yourself. There's not a lot of time left here. And this is why I was talking to my dear friend Stanley on the way in this morning. You know, I usually sit here and I read verbatim to you, as I said, facts and all documented history and documented bills and legislation and court findings and reports, financial reports. I had to speak to you today. I had to speak to you as a human being, as a man, as an American, as a concerned citizen for our nation. We are being led down a road of disparity. Disparity. This whole thing is about to collapse. My friends, we are 1933 Germany. We are 1995 Argentina right now. Right now. And we are being controlled by a cackle of international bankers that laugh at you every single day. They can't believe how stupid, ignorant, and gullible and cowardly you are. Read their own writings. This isn't an opinion. This is their own writings. This is their own writings. They are amazed at what they can get away with you. They laugh at you. They bleed you every day. They have you paying 62% of your sweat equity to them while they still maintain debt. They have you paying for Obama to go to elaborate vacations, the last one in Hawaii for Christmas, $110 million. Why do you, I had a friend of mine call me up. I was at work because I don't have regular TV at home with regards to being able to watch regular TV. And a friend of mine called me up at work and said, "Hey, are you watching this guy?" And I said, "Who?" He said Obama. I said, "Why?" I know the man's lying to me. He wants to do this for the middle class and to create jobs. My friends, didn't I just read to you 3 weeks ago? To save $3 billion, he ixnayed his job council. Of course, he hasn't had one meeting with them in the 5 years he's been in presidency, but he ixnayed it to save $3 billion while he upped foreign aid by $9 billion. Why do I want to watch this guy? Number one, he's a puppet. Number two, he's lying to me. And I don't care if, he's just a puppet of another color. I don't care if it's the Bushes. I don't care if it's the Clintons. You can go back. Go back as far as you want to 1963, because everybody from that point to today has lied to you. And the last guy who tried to make a difference in your lives for the positive of his nation, they took out. And they did it on the TV screens in front of everybody. And they covered the whole thing up. And they put in a patsy. I think everybody in my generation knows damn well Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill John F. Kennedy. He wasn't capable physically of making the shots with an old Italian 7mm bolt-action rifle. What was the first thing that LBJ did as president? He did away with Executive Order 11110. My friends, you got to understand that we are beyond this fiscal cliff, to use their jargon. We are at the point, we have hundreds of thousands of foreign troops here. We've got 63% of our military overseas. We are about big time to go into Africa, my friends. You watch what goes on in Africa. We're already in Libya, Northern Africa. Now we're in Mali. We're about to expand our empire into Africa. And I'm going to tell you something. The rest of the world is not going to sit idly by too much longer. China had to remove 39,000 of its own citizens when we went into Libya. China lost trillions of dollars of contracts. There is a currency war going on, my friends, and we're about to lose it because we have a debt instrument. We talked about the Shanghai Agreement last May. Remember, we did probably about a half-hour presentation on the Shanghai Agreement. And for those of you who didn't get to see that program, let me back up just a little bit. The Shanghai Agreement, we talked about how everybody has to have the Federal Reserve note as a reserve currency. Well, them days are over, my friends, because China and Russia and India, well, and Syria and Libya and Venezuela and Iran all signed off on this thing called the Shanghai Agreement. And they're going to use the Chinese yuan as their international exchange mechanism now. So, my friends, the bankers, can do this two ways. One, they can create World War III and hope that we come out on top so we can keep this facade going. Or number two, they can crash the dollar, which is not a dollar, which is what the top Obama aide said they're going to do. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to the future of our nation when we have a medium of exchange that is devalued? Go on the internet, my friends, and punch in the devaluation of the German mark when the Weimar Republic fell. And you are going to see pictures of a mother and their daughter throwing bundles of 1,000 mark notes into the wood stove to keep warm. There was a story in Germany that Hitler really took advantage of, and it went like this. And it wasn't a story, this was actually true. There was a fellow who was very educated man, very well-to-do man, and he had been doing business with this particular store in Germany all his life, from childhood, very families friendly with each other and so forth. He walked into this store because he saw the devaluation coming on, the hyperinflation. And he walked in with literally a wheelbarrow full of German paper marks. A wheelbarrow. And he walked into the store with it, and he said, I want this, 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 and that for this wheelbarrow. You know what the store owner said to him? Take the marks, leave the wheelbarrow, I'll give you this. Look that up. It's very true. And I want to tell you another thing that's very true because I am a student of history. There's two very strong common denominators when you look at a nation or a people that have been conquered. There's two of them. The first one is no one thought it would happen here. It wouldn't happen in Germany. It wouldn't happen in Argentina. It wouldn't happen in China. It wouldn't happen in Japan. It wouldn't happen in Rome. It wouldn't happen in Babylon. No one thought it would happen here. And the other common denominator, my friends, is they were all disarmed. They were all disarmed. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who used to live in Vermont here, said it the best. Yes, they took our arms, but if, oh, yet we had only met them at the door with pitchforks. My friends, you have not heard about, on December 14th, about the man in China that walked into the Chinese school and stabbed 22 children. Of course, we read that to you verbatim here. There is evil everywhere. There is good everywhere. And when good people are disarmed, they are at the bequest of evil. And evil presents itself in many ways. In many, many ways. My friends, I want to thank you for watching this program today. This is very, very different for us. As I said, we usually present just facts and figures to you, and I've got 7 pages here of corporations that are not only not paying any corporate taxes, neither are their CEOs or their head honchos, they're actually getting tax refunds. And you know what, I don't have the time to get into this, but how about we just do one? DuPont, okay, made $2.124 billion last year. All right, they got taxes paid in refund. They got a check for $72 million. That's just one. I've got 7 pages of it here. The wealthy do not pay income taxes. They're foundations which control you, control your thinking, do not pay income taxes. And these foundations come up with the things like global warming and so forth. As we know, global warming was put together in 1968 by the Club of Rome. Right? Pollution doesn't recognize borders, and this way here, man himself becomes the enemy. Fear. Hegelian dialectic. Crisis. Reaction from you. Solution from them. My friends, please see what is going on around you. Become active. Become active with your mind. Understand we are being bled. Understand that now they are after your pension funds. And we did a presentation on that some time ago. It was about a year and a half ago. Now it's happening. Go ask the firefighters and policemen and city workers of Central Falls, Rhode Island, what recently happened to their pension funds. My friends, we are at the crux of disaster, and we are responsible for it to our children because of our ignorance, our apathy, and our indecisive non-action. Education, my friends, is our best ammo. This is not going to be turned around with guns and bullets, and nobody wants that. This is going to be turned around by getting active at the grassroots level. Educating your fellow man, and let them know, yes, we know you're watching us, but we are watching you. My friends, thank you for putting up with me today. It's a little different, like I said. I hope you enjoyed this program. I hope you come back next week, where we'll get back on course with documentation. And as always, we're extremely thankful that you take the time from your busy day to watch our program. And as always, we close in reminding you that your government is your responsibility. Thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines.